Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
What's going on, good people? This is Triumph Tuesday, and you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. I thank you again for joining me. You could have been listening to someone else. You could have been listening to another show. So I thank you for listening to the show. If you're listening live, if you're listening from the replays of the podcast, I thank you. But guess what, people? We made it through Monday. We made it to another day of the week. And again, I celebrate you because I know you finished strong Monday. Yes, I know you did. But let's say this. I want to tell you, here at the Afternoon Praise, we help people reach their defined level of success by discovering and developing their gifts. Yesterday, we set the tone, man. If you missed yesterday, you need to go back and listen to the show. Yesterday, we set the tone for the week. We made it clear. What you allow is the standard. Culture is not what you say, it's what you allow. But today, we deal with the breakdown because most people don't lose what they built overnight. They lose it slowly. They lose it through what they ignored. They lose it through what they refuse to confront. And let's be clear, a red flag is not a suggestion. It is not something to watch. It is not something to hope improves. It is a signal that something is wrong right now. And if you don't respond, it grows. Let's look at Joshua 24:15. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua didn't wait for dysfunction. He made a decision early. He set the tone before things got out of control. And today we're dealing with the reality. Red flags don't fix themselves. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and I thank you for joining me. Go tell a family member and a friend. Tune in here on Wave Radio.
Join us on this heavenly journey, one song at a time, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and it is Triumph Tuesday, and today we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves. Yes, you heard it. You heard it. I said that. Red flags don't fix themselves. Let's define red flags correctly. A red flag is not a small issue. It's not a personality. It's not a preference. It's an early warning signal of a deeper issue that has not fully developed yet. It's the preview, not the full problem. See, historically, red flags were never meant for discussion. They were used in military, railroads, and maritime systems to signal stop immediately because something ahead has been compromised. That means when you see a red flag, you are not being confused. You are being warned. And warning requires response, not observation. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
You're riding the waves of faith and grace on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves. See, red flags were designed for immediate action. Red was chosen for a reason. It travels farther. It cuts through fog. It gets your attention quickly. That's why advertisers use the color red on everything. See, that means red flags were designed to give you visibility early enough to prevent damage, not react after damage. That means when a red flag show up, you've been given time. Time to act, time to correct, time to protect. But here's the problem. Most people don't act early. They observe early and react late. And by the time they react, the damage is already forming. People, stop allowing red flags to damage what you built. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You are tuned in on this Triumph Tuesday on the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio, and we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves. See, You didn't miss it. You overrode it. Let me explain myself. Let's remove the excuse. Most red flags are not hidden. They show up early. Inconsistency, communication issues, lack of discipline, misalignment. You saw it, you felt it, you questioned it, but guess what? You overrode it. Why? Because something else mattered more in the moment. I guess the relationship, maybe the opportunity, or most times the money or the performance. So instead of responding, you rationalize, and that moment becomes the starting point of the problem. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Hey, the show starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, if you're not doing nothing at 2 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time, and of course, it's, as you go different time zones, it gets earlier. But I want you to come in at 2 p.m. enjoy the show. But again, I know some of you all can't, but that's why we have the replay. But if you just tuned in, and if you missed some of the show, you can always go back and listen to the replay. All right. And again, if you just tuned in, the show today is Red Flags Don't Fix Themselves. See, ignoring is a leadership decision. Ignoring is not passive. It's a leadership move. When you ignore a red flag, you are not delaying action. You are making a decision about what is acceptable. You are communicating without speaking. You are telling the environment, this can stay. And once something is allowed to stay, it gains strength. Because behavior that is not challenged becomes confident. And confident behavior becomes repeated behavior. And repeated behavior becomes culture. So ignoring is not absence. So ignoring is not absence of leadership. It is leadership in the wrong direction. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're tuned in to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. Remember, share Wave Radio with someone, WAYVVE radio.com. Make sure you help us grow our listenership. And again, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. This is the only place you can hear the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about small signals become system failures. No system collapsed from one big moment. It collapsed from a series of small, unaddressed signals. One issue ignored, then another, until what was once abnormal becomes normal. That's how systems fail. Not loudly, but gradually. Because once something stops being corrected, it stops being questioned. And once it stopped being questioned, it becomes part of the system itself. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and today's show is Red Flags Don't Fix Themselves. Your mind will protect what you should confront. The real battle is not always external, it's internal, because your mind will protect comfort. It will justify what should be corrected. You would tell yourself, it's not that serious. They just need time. I don't want to disrupt things. But what you're really doing is lowering your standards to avoid discomfort. And once your standards drop, everything below it rises to meet it. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Bringing the sounds of heaven 24/7, Wave Radio.
If you're just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. You remember, we talked about this a few times before last month on the show, the talent trap. See, this is where leaders lose control. Because the person produces, they bring results, They perform under pressure. They create value. So you tolerate behavior you shouldn't, because you're measuring output, not alignment. But here's the truth, people. Talent without alignment is not strength. It's instability. Because talent can produce results while damaging the environment that produces those results. It can win in the moment, but weaken everything long term. And once others see that talent overrides standards, the culture shifts. Now, people don't aim for alignment, they aim for leverage. And once people start leveraging performance to bypass standards, leadership loses control. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you got a shout out or request, hit me up and I got you. We want to make sure that we are responding to you because you took the time to say, hey, I'm going to send this shout out. I'm going to send this request. So we respect your time. So we will make sure we get those requests and we honor your shout outs. Today here on Triumph Tuesday, we're talking about red flags don't fix themselves. What you allow will multiply. See, behavior does not stay contained. It multiplies because people don't just listen to what you say. They study what you allow. So when something is tolerated, it sends a signal. This is acceptable here. Now others adjust. They lower their efforts. They loosen their discipline. They test boundaries too. And before long, the environment changes because one tolerated behavior becomes 10 repeated behaviors. And what started as an exception becomes the expectation. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on this Triumph Tuesday. I hope your Tuesday is going well. And if you're going through something, just remember, hey, I am interceding for you. I am praying for you. I know you can get through this. I'm not saying how to get through it, but I know you can get through this. But just pray, allow God to fight this battle. Remember, the Bible said the battle is not yours, it's the Lord. And today we're talking about red flags don't fix themselves. People think silence is a cure. Silence is something that will avoid the problem, will fix the problem. But silence is instructions to people. Silence is not neutral. Silence teaches. When you see something and say nothing, you are not staying out of it. You are reinforcing it. Because people don't interpret silence as uncertainty. They interpret it as approval. And approval creates confidence. Confidence creates repetition. Repetition creates culture. So every time you stay silent, you are writing the culture without words. And I'm going to repeat that. Every time you stay silent, you are writing the culture without words. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Triumph Tuesday. Man, this is a fast year. We are in May. We are in the first week of May. Colleges get out next week. What is Saturday? Colleges are graduating this Saturday. Mother's Day is this Sunday. We just said Happy New Year. But with that said, I'm telling you, you don't have time to waste. You don't have time to delay. Why? Because delay multiplies the cost. There is always a cost to delay. But here's the part people don't calculate. Delay compounds. What should have been a conversation becomes a correction. What should have been a correction becomes a conflict. What could have become a conflict becomes a culture issue. Because time does not fix problems. Time expands them. And the longer something exists without being addressed, the more it embeds itself into the system. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. And the last break, we was talking about delay multiplies. So now let's talk about delay weakens authority. When you delay, you don't just delay actions, you dilute authority. Because now your leadership feels inconsistent. People start asking, why now? Why didn't this matter before? And that question weakens trust. Because strong leadership is not just about making decisions. It's about making them consistently. And once consistency breaks, clarity breaks. And once clarity breaks, alignment follows. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned in to the Afternoon Praise on this Triumph Tuesday. I am excited that you are here. And if you missed part of the show, again, you can go back to and listen on the replay from YouTube, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. And today we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves. See, red flags reveals leadership gaps. Every red flag reveals something deeper. It's not just about the behavior you see, it's about the system behind it. It exposes what hasn't been defined, what hasn't been reinforced, what hasn't been protected. Red flags are not interruptions. They are diagnostics. They show you exactly where your leadership needs to grow. And if you ignore the signal, you ignore the opportunity to strengthen the system. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. If you got a prayer request, make sure you go to waveradio.com and submit your prayer request. Again, we thank you for trusting us to pray over you, to cover you. And again, we do this because God allow us to do this. We don't do this on our strength. We do this through Jesus Christ. And we do this on God's strength. And you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and we're talking about red flags don't fix themselves. Strong leaders act early. Strong leaders don't wait for confirmation. They act on signal. They don't need everything to fall apart to respond. They understand. Early actions protects everything. They isolate the issue. They identify the root. They address it clearly. Not emotionally, not reactively, but decisively. Because they are not trying to avoid discomfort. They are trying to protect the system. We have to protect the system and what we built. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves on this Triumph Tuesday. Let's talk about this. Elite environments don't ignore signals. In elite environments, ignoring a signal is not an option. Let's look at aviation. One warning can ground a plane. Let's look at manufacturing. One defect can stop a line. Because the cost of ignoring it is high. It's too high. That's called stop work authority, which means anyone can pause the system when something is wrong. Now, think about your environment. Do people feel empowered to address issues, or do they feel pressure to ignore them? Because environments that ignore signals eventually pay for them. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. On this Triumph Tuesday, we are talking about red flags don't fix themselves. See, red flags are a strategic advantage. A red flag is not a setback. It's an advantage. It gives you visibility early. It gives you time to act before damage spreads. It gives you control over the outcome, but only if you respond. Because if you ignore it, you forfeit the advantage. And now you're no longer leading proactively. You're reactive defensively. And reactive leadership is always more expensive than proactive leadership. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Hey, thank you for joining me on today. My time is up on this Triumph Tuesday. And again, if you missed the show, you can always go back and listen to the replay. You can go to my YouTube channel, The Business Point Guard, Demetrius L. Brown. But let me leave you with this. In Joshua 24, verse 15, it said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And look what Joshua did. And that's not all the scripture, but I want to focus on that piece. Joshua didn't wait for dysfunction. He didn't wait for red flags to turn into problems. He made a decision early. He set the standard clearly, and he removed the option for confusion. Because leadership is not proven in how you respond late. It's proven in how you decide early. Red flags don't fix themselves, people. Problems don't disappear. Culture don't correct itself. Leadership does. And here's the truth. You can't ignore. You didn't lose control when things got bad. You lost control when you saw it early and chose not to act. Because a red flag is a gift. It gives you time. It gives you clarity. It gives you a chance to protect what you build. But when you ignore it, you turn a warning into a consequence. A red flag, people, is a gift of time. Ignoring it is a decision that makes the outcome more expensive. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I am out of here. I will catch you tomorrow on Build a Brand Wednesday. Yes, time is flying, y'all. We are almost in the middle of the week. Hey, I'm out of here. Peace.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.